My name is Jacob Stoops, and you're listening to the Page 2 Podcast, my podcast about the reality of being an SEO, in which I chronicle the real-life stories, experiences, challenges, and advice from some of the most amazing people in the industry. Today, we talk with Janet Bartoli, Managing Partner, Strategic SEO Lead, and SEO Educator at Strategy Rework, a company dedicated to helping in-house SEOs become successful. Janet has been doing SEO since the early 2000s and has basically done everything from in-house to agency to consulting to speaking and to educating. We talk about what it's like to be the lead client-facing SEO across all major accounts, what it's like to lead and develop less experienced SEOs, and what it's like to work on complex projects that are packed with pressure to perform. We also talk about working well with developers, her affinity for in-house SEOs, and much, much more. So get ready for another candid SEO conversation as we tell Janet's SEO story. Hey everybody, this is Jacob Stoops. I am here with Janet Bartoli, Managing Partner and SEO Strategic Lead and Educator at Strategy Rework. Janet, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Jacob.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being willing to come on. This is another late night recording. Definitely appreciate it. And wanted to say, and I was saying this off air, but I wanted to say thank you for being proactive in terms of reaching out to me. One of kind of the lesser known components of running a podcast, especially an interview-based podcast, is the idea that you're the one doing all of it, and that includes reaching out to and setting up and scheduling guests and figuring out times that work. And it's really helpful to not have to go looking to fill interview slots. So Janet reached out to me, has awesome experience that we're going to get into, and I was really grateful.
Yeah, you're welcome. And as a podcast fan myself, and I came across your podcast, I was really interested. So thank you for taking me up on the offer, and I'm glad I'm here.
So Janet, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, we can go all the way back where I started my career. I've been a professional SEO since 2004 in just about every form, in-house, agency, independent consultant. I've been a professional speaker, SEO educator, just kind of run many different roles across the whole SEO, environment, really. So I started back in 2004, much the same way you and many others have. I actually owned an internet consultancy. It was a franchise, actually, and building websites for small, medium-sized businesses who, by the way, at the time had no idea they even needed a website, and they thought Yellow Pages was definitely their number one marketing tactic. So I developed sites for them. I would hand them off, and just, again, like a lot of other SEOs, you come to the realization that, okay, how is this going to get found in Google? And I had this one accountant in New Jersey, and I thought, how's he going to be found? If everyone's searching for an accountant in New Jersey, I need to make sure the site's going to be built for him, that I built for him, it's going to rank well. So there wasn't much material around at the time, but whatever I could find, I just applied to his site. And it was literally a matter of weeks. Again, it was 2004. He was ranking number one for New Jersey accounting and New Jersey accountants, and right before tax season. So it was like the sweet spot. It really was like so exciting to see that it was like that held my, interest, and that's where the passion started. And ever since, I've just really loved it. So
I guess take me through your career from there, because you've been at a bunch of places, some pretty big. So you've done some time at LexisNexis, which I believe you may have run into or crossed paths with one of my other interviewees, Dan Eng, who has also spent a little bit of time there. Yeah. And you spent time at Accenture, which another small world. You may have crossed paths with one of my other former colleagues from Rosetta, Laura Dobbinspec-Titus.
Yeah.
So she's interesting. She recently is now running all of the e-commerce and digital stuff for Wendy's, which is based in Columbus.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, she was always awesome to work with. So small world. So I guess from where you started to getting to there, I guess how did you get there, and what was your experience like at both of those places?
Well, so even before that, so after the internet consultancy, it was fun and interesting to run that, but I really needed to get more exposure, and I wanted to do something bigger than the smaller businesses. And there really was no local search at the time, so there wasn't even such a thing. So I decided, let me go to a digital agency. I didn't even realize at the time that was the best place to go to learn at anything. It was a small boutique agency. It was called Digital Grit at the time in Boonton, New Jersey. It was a fabulous place where it was just a lot of really great, really smart people, fun place to work at. And so I started there as SEO specialist and quickly ramped up within 2 years to associate director of SEO. I was the token client-facing SEO. So it was like any of the big, important kind of clients that we would have. And I would always ask them, like, I got like 10 clients now. This is a little bit insane to kind of balance all of this. But we had some of our SEO specialists that were maybe a little not ready for prime time. This is probably the best way to put it. And so it was just a little tough to get them in front of the client and just walk them through the strategy and how we wanted to approach things and coordinate with paid search, et cetera. So I really learned a ton there. From there, there were a lot of people at the time, people were jumping from, this was like 2006 or 7, and people were jumping from place to place. And it was like the way to just ramp your career up. And I just thought, yeah. And of course, as you know, being in an agency, 1 or 2 years is like 4 to 7 years. It just takes a lot out of your life.
Yeah, and it's like a dog lives or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I really wanted to go in-house, and I thought, this sounds really interesting. And I just kept hearing from people, it's so boring. You got one site. That's all you're going to be focused on. And, what kind of a challenge could that be? And I thought, well, but how else would I know unless I'm in their shoes? And so that's when I got the job at LexisNexis, and it wound up being a global position. So not only was I overseeing LexisNexis.com, which is predominantly North American, but we had a whole global contingent. There was EMEA, we had APAC, and then all of these different other, sections around the world. And so I then quickly had to learn international SEO and understand what the differences were. And then I really loved getting into the in-house aspect of it. So I started like in-house lunch and learns, where I would do like these global webinars to try and teach other editorial teams and the development teams, like what they needed to know so that I could get my recommendations implemented. But it was a team effort. This is why I'm asking you to do these things, just to justify. And it was also, as I told them, a resume booster as a developer, knowing SEO. That's just going to be, huge, no matter whether they stayed there or moved on. It was definitely something that would enhance their career. So, and everyone loved it. I mean, I would get on with Malaysia and go through and run through the best practices. I would establish like a wiki. So we would have like this area where all basically all the technical guides or best practices were housed. And then they could just sort of like reach out and download those and just have them whenever they were writing or developing. And so being in-house wasn't so boring after all. Yeah. And I got to do a lot of really great stuff and again, work with a lot of really great people. And I was there for a few years. And then I was getting more interested in jumping back over into the agency world again. But this time it just seemed to be like every place I went, it was another level up. So I went to Accenture, which, of course, with 400,000 employees, and who knows what number they're at now. But I was one of only 3 or 4 SEOs in the entire global organization.
Wow.
And it was crazy. And one of my greatest challenge stories is when I immediately started working there. I was on this huge visible project, and which was the reason that they had hired me. And it was a very large telecom company. For 6 months, they had seen their traffic declining month after month. This company had a complete redesign and migration, which occurred 6 months prior. So things were starting to make sense to me already. The first day, I'm in the client meeting. The VP was pissed. She had no idea what or why the traffic was tanking after the redesign. And nobody on this team that I had just joined at Accenture had any clue. They were looking at alt text, like, what about the alternate text? I'm like, okay, guys, that's not going to tank your traffic. But they had no idea. They just didn't know where to turn, and they were desperate. So she said, if this isn't resolved and things don't turn around in 2 weeks, I'm canceling this contract. So it was like, boom, that was it. I was really the only SEO on the team. And I was like, they were all looking at me like, you got to figure this out. So I used my previous employer's Screaming Frog license and SEMrush account and dove right into it. Got into Webmaster Tools. I was doing like 14-hour days, creating recommendations and getting ready for that 2-week follow-up. And so consequently, working with the development team, it was just, through that redesign, it was a meta refresh masquerade party basically going on. Redirects. So it was, and this was 2012. So things were like going crazy. And so I basically Excel workbook of recommendations, work with the developers, and I just work with them on an every other day basis to manage them. This is why we need to get this. This is, and they were like, well, we always use meta refresh, So it was like, no, this is the best practice is this. And I would always back it up with, here are the Google guidelines. This is what we need to do. And the traffic starts ticking back up. And so within that pretty brief period of time, because this telecom company, well-known brand, they were just like thrilled and surprised. So it was exhausting, but incredibly rewarding just to see all that turn around. So that was fun. So that was, I had done, while I was with Accenture, I had done a ton of speaking. I had written a lot of like white papers for them, point of view documents. And anytime there was a need for SEO evaluation of any project all over the world, I was basically the one that was tasked to go to that. And a fun fact, I was offered a unique opportunity to live in Italy for 9 months to develop a full-scale SEO program for a well-known auto manufacturer. So that was tons of fun. So it was basically Airbnb for 9 months and building up this company's, and it was across 7 brands in like 9 different countries and within Europe. And so that was a ton of fun too. And just talk about like tons of international SEO right there.
So I wrote down a bunch of different things that I wanted to ask you about. And the thing that keeps coming to the forefront of my mind is, one, seems like you've done a little bit of everything, which is amazing to have that range of experience. But the way that I'm imagining, and I'm trying to like put myself in your shoes in terms of, you're brand new at Accenture and you get this ultimatum and all of a sudden you're pulling 14-hour days, or you're at LexisNexis and you're faced with this not boring and giant global strategy. And the word that comes to mind is both pressure and complexity. So how did you deal? Like, what was it like to deal with those high pressure situations, and how did you manage to keep your head on straight?
Well, a lot of running, which it's funny, but it's true. It's definitely, I enjoy running, and I find I'm able to solve a lot of problems and complex situations when you just run and run for a long time. So marathons and half marathons helps a lot. But, I think it was just because I'm just maybe used to all of my whole career. There's always been a challenge. There's always been a situation. There's always been a pressure position. And it's just, well, you just got to figure it out. So, I'm not trying to make light of it, but I think it's just the way that I operate. I think I just operate on, and that's SEO anyway. I don't care where you are. It is complex, and it can be stressful and laden with pressure, because if this doesn't work, this could take down, it could be the number one moneymaker for any small business if it's all organic, if they're not doing anything in paid. And for an enterprise level site, it's huge. It's their brand. And so, it's just, just take a step back, take a deep breath, and just evaluate what is like that situation for that telecom. I knew exactly what I was like, just doing a basic technical audit. You're going to know exactly what the deal is. The fact that the team's looking at things like alt tags when they had no idea, of course. It was like, no, folks, that's not what it is. But I knew it had something to do, because at that time with Google, it was a redirect thing. You don't set the right 301s up, then there's just hell to pay. And and even when I was at Lexus, I remember there was a Sunday, and I got a call from my VP, and he was like, Janet, something's going on. I don't know if you've noticed the last few days, but there's been traffic issues. And so, of course, what happened was the development team decided to move a certain subfolder from one location to another without putting in the right 301 redirect. And so Google picked up on it. So, it's all about just learning from what are those lessons and those times when something does go wrong, and what can I do to resolve this? And then reaching out to your network. Whether there's other colleagues, if you jump into a subreddit or into any kind of a, SEO forum, and just say, this is what's going on. What am I missing? Things like that always, of course, help.
Yeah. And I think the SEO community is there are many, many things that when I'm thinking about the SEO community that annoy me, but that's not one of them. Right. The SEO community is tremendously giving, and whether you're a competitor at another agency, it's funny. Even on this podcast, I'm talking to people who are at other agencies who are theoretically my competitors. I'm talking to former colleagues at my old job who is definitely a competitor. Mm-hmm. But the great thing about SEO is everybody, even when you're in competition with each other, is all. People are willing to give and willing to share, and that's been something that I think the industry has been built on. And the other thing that I would say is 301s, still really important, never stopped.
True, very true.
Important. So, I have two recent examples of that. A client that I don't work on anymore, but I laid out the foundation for them to get through a redesign and a replatform and a migration in my absence. And unfortunately, they didn't follow it. And one of the core culprits was 301s did not get implemented correctly. And they went from a lot of traffic to a little traffic,
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately. And then I do have another one with a current client coming up where that's a huge focus, and that's a huge point of emphasis. All right, guys, if we get nothing else right, we've got to get the redirects right. Mm-hmm. That is literally the number one thing, because we're switching URLs and a lot of moving pieces and parts. But that's the one thing that you almost always have to point to when you're going through a major transition is if we get nothing else right, just get the redirects right, and we'll sort the rest out later.
Without a doubt. Absolutely.
Right. So a couple of other things kind of jumped out at me. One being the client-facing SEO with kind of a stable full of kind of greener, less experienced specialists kind of behind you, and being stretched across 10 clients. That's agency world in a nutshell. What is it? And again, the word pressure just comes to mind. What is it like knowing that you are the one that has to be leaned on for, being the public face, and not only that, being stretched across so many clients when I know that it can be difficult at an agency to try to remember everything that's going on, as well as be an expert in many different industries all at the same time, to kind of keep it all straight in your head. So how are you able to do that?
With a lot of organization, and I would have separate documents and like meeting notes for each one, and something kind of like a Trello board that you could kind of pull from. But I remember there at the time I was getting stretched because there was a client that wound up asking the account director, is Janet is she working on other clients? Because it was obviously something was starting to be noticed. And I don't remember what that was, but of course, the just exhaustion of running back and forth from one meeting to the next, to getting somebody else's recommendations ready, to sharing them, putting them into a deck that, you had to make sure with the other, we would always work with the paid team. So we'd have to make sure the SEO slides would get into the paid deck. And it was just, it was pretty hairy. And it was just, again, what is the best way to, and I am a pretty disciplined, organized person. And that just really kind of forced me to be very disciplined and focused on this client has these are the issues this is where they are in the program, and this is what we're working on. And at the time, they were not nearly as sophisticated or advanced, those SEO programs, as what we have right now. So it was kind of early days and very kind of basic SEO stuff. But still, you're right. You have to remember, I'm talking to Joe, not Steve, and and then you'd have a client who literally the turnover was like every other week, and I was like, "You're killing me! I don't even know who I'm talking to now," and I'm trying to balance these other people. So it did get pretty crazy, but I think the basic process was pretty simplified at the time, so it wasn't as complex or advanced as it is now, let's say, which probably did help.
So one of the other complex, not necessarily, it can be complex. One of the other themes that you kind of touched upon was the need to teach both your in-house kind of inexperienced folks and get them up to speed so that you don't have to be the face on every account, but also the development teams. And that's been kind of a common thread that we've worked through. That it's pretty much universal, whether you're in-house or at an agency. It can be a lot harder when you're at an agency because you don't have direct access always to those folks. But in-house, either way, it's incredibly important to develop a good working relationship with the people on the development and on the website management side that are making the changes for you. Implementation is the hardest part, right? It's difficult sometimes to get your recommendations in place correctly. And not only that, it doesn't help that there is often a lot of skepticism coming from the other side. So how do you deal with that?
So I always came from, I did have a technical background even prior to SEO. I actually was doing network support for Smith Barney prior to all of my SEO work. So I did have a technical background, and I understood kind kind of the personalities and just really kind of how to work with those different teams. So I always took the approach of let me be friends. Let's all build a rapport and develop a friendship. And just I would take the time to really hear them. These are and I wouldn't start off with here's my set of recommendations. I need to implemented by next Tuesday. Mm-hmm. I would always start with a workshop. So I would say, I'm going to have a workshop just for you guys. And it was always like a special thing. So it's just a technical SEO workshop. It's just going to be for you guys. And you can ask anything, but I'm going to have everything that is critically important from an SEO standpoint. And again, the benefit is it's going to really help you guys. And anytime I would have any performance as a result, I would always share it with them or give them kudos in a broadcast email that if it weren't for this amazing development team, they did X, Y, Z. And now because of that, we've seen this increase in conversions, traffic, etc. So I was always giving them credit too, of course. But I think starting out with the workshop was a big help. And the feedback was always really great. I mean, they would just be so appreciative that they would be taught SEO because as developers, they're never taught SEO. They're taught what is the quickest, most efficient way to do, X, whatever that is. Doesn't matter. It's just the shortest route to get to here, what that is, without a consideration to SEO. So, and I told them there's a lot of things that I can't get everything from an SEO standpoint, but we have to compromise and figure out what is the best way that we can get both of what we need done. Mm-hmm. And so for the benefit of the site. So I think that, holding those workshops and really educating them, and I wouldn't just do one, I would do probably one a quarter and just let them know here's the updates. These are some of the changes in the algorithm. Here's the latest technical audit I ran. This is what it showed. Is there any way we can optimize or improve this? And they would just be, most of them, I would rarely have a negative, developer who would say, that's not to say that I wouldn't get a developer who would say, it's total rubbish what you're saying here. It makes no sense, but I would say, okay, this isn't just me saying this, because I'm not the authority on SEO by any means, but here's from the horse's mouth. And I would actually show them, here is something from a Google blog or Google Webmaster Support developer section showing exactly, this is what this is why we need it done this way. And the actual, of course, in developer where they'll show you exactly step by step on how to actually, implement that. And so a lot of times I would have to pull that out, which was just fine with me if they didn't want to follow the way that I was instructing them to do it, and they would prefer to read that from Google. As long as they did it and they did it correctly, it was just a win-win all the way around. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I really like the idea of having regular workshops and being proactive about teaching, because you're right, a developer. In working with many of them over the years, they're very much black and white, input, output, right? The mm-hmm. quickest way to get something done so that they can move on to the next thing. And there's always somebody stacking things up for them to do it's an endless cycle of things that they have to knock down. So building rapport with them is absolutely important. I do have one story of my own with a developer, and it's not a good story of a developer that I just don't think I was able to win over. And I can't remember if I've told it, so I'm gonna just tell it really, really quickly. So and this is way back 5 or 6 years ago, when I was at one of the other agencies. I'm at Search Discovery now, but when I was at another agency, we were working with this highly seasonal client, and this client made a bulk of their revenue around the holidays, and in turn, that's when they got the busiest. So they spent their entire year planning for this huge season where they made 80 to 90% of their yearly revenue. And so we went through the season. We had a good season. And we were talking about, planning for the next season. And we were talking about, hey, we just got you this 25% year over year lift in organic revenue. And by the way, that's the second year in a row that we've been able to do that. So that's 50% incrementally over the course of 2 years or whatever. No mathematician, maybe that's wrong. But anyway, so we're presenting these great results, and we use that as an opportunity to say, all right, we did really great, but we could do more. And we could do X, Y, and Z. And so the developer that I had been working directly with the entire time, we had never had a bad interaction. Now the developer definitely was open to challenging and pushing back, but we were always able to work through it professionally. And one of my colleagues just happened to be sitting next to this person. And as I'm talking, and I didn't find this out until later, and we're getting to the point where we're saying, but we can be better here, here, and here. And let's think about those things as we're going into next year. My colleague literally saw this person typing to his other colleague, yeah, we're not effing doing any of that. And
nice.
And I was just, when I heard that, I was like, all right, I didn't win this guy over. So got a lot of work to do. But man, that was one of my great developer stories. And I've had really great interactions with most developers, but that was not one of them.
Yeah. Well, that was to say there's always going to be one,
right?
And I may be blocking out some that I just don't remember, but I do remember a lot of times it would be they would not initially believe it sometimes, and that's when you have to just say, okay, fine. Here's the Google link that shows exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And rarely, but I would get a counter. Okay, but this, and it would be like, okay, now we need to set up another one-on-one just to kind of review and talk this through, so that, because emails back and forth and you're missing the context of what we're talking about. But yeah, it could go down a whole rabbit hole for sure.
So switching gears a little bit, I saw on your LinkedIn profile that you've spent some time kind of in the education space. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So I was actually contracted in to work for an online university, Walden University, for a year, where I managed their e-commerce. So basically their website. So it included SEO, of course, but also conversion rate optimization, user experience, which of course these things do tie into SEO very nicely. So we also were getting into personalization and doing getting the site from a less than 25% personalized to closer to 75% based on the different types of content and things that we were doing. So it was definitely closer to some. I've been in some similar projects in Accenture like this, but this one in particular had its own set of challenges. It was more of a back to in-house kind of a situation. The benefit here, though, this was the most unique thing that I've ever talking about developers, but one of the most unique situations in managing this huge website, basicly. And the goal is enrolls, and how many enrolls can we get students to enroll? And the majority of the traffic and enrolls are coming through organic search. And so how do we just maximize in back to brand? The believe it or not, .edus are having a difficult sort of time with Google now, where they didn't used to. But now there's all of the online university review sites that are now suppressing a lot of the .edus. But we had our own developer assigned to my team. So this was the first time I have ever experienced this. He was literally about 5 feet away from me, and I could get up and walk over and say, I don't know what's going on over here, but we need to correct this and this. And he would literally put it in his queue and have it done by the end of the day. Nice. I was like, wow, this is really nice. Yeah. So the experience with that was a pretty decent sized team of about 6 to 8 different individuals we had content, SEO, CRO. We had a couple of developers, and then contracted out user experience with an agency, and SEO as well. So the agency was providing SEO. So it's always difficult for me to be, on the other side, one side or the other, whether I'm on the agency side dealing with the client. I've been on the in-house side, so I know what they should be getting because I've been in their shoes. And then, and just the reverse. Now I'm on in-house again, and I'm dealing with an agency, and they're not doing, or they're not providing necessarily the level that I'm expecting. And that can be difficult because, again, you understand, what's the percentage of time? Where's the senior strategist? Why is he not giving me enough face time as he should? There's a junior person who's pretty green and can't speak to strategy or the complex, nature that we've got. We're trying to manage all these different digital activities and making sure that they're all aligned and coordinated well. And, this individual was just not that experienced. And so it was now, not only this is not anything, not a bent on agencies, but I think it's harder for somebody like, when, just as if you were to go in-house, exactly what that agency should be giving you because what you gave your clients, and not everybody is you. And so you're sitting there wondering, like, why am I only getting like this half-baked looking report? Like, where is all of everything else? Where's all the meat and the KPIs and everything else? So it was an interesting experience.
Yeah. So I just had, and it's going to be going live tomorrow, an interview with Nick Eubanks. And we were talking about that very thing in terms of what things pass off as SEO strategy and what things are kind of even still being sold on the market, and what things agencies or consultancies are able to get away with because people don't know any better except in situations like this where you do. And yeah, it's interesting in that I know that when I was in-house, I was kind of ruthless with agencies because I was the same way. But then I also had to realize kind of the limitations, and not everybody's me. Not everybody's gonna have my level of detail or do things exactly the way that I wanted to. So there's certainly a lot of give and take, but I was pretty ruthless with agencies when I was in house.
Yeah. It's hard because you have to be deferential and just, okay, this person's new. So, but is it my job to help them out? I mean, I did anyway, because I just kind of felt bad for the guy.
Right.
So it's just kind of like, all right, this is really what we need to have this. And, but it really is. And, I wound up speaking later to more senior level people in the agency and said, this is what I expect. We're paying a lot of money. This is just what we need to have this. And sort of here's the pro. And I know that this has been established well before I even walked in the door, but I'm here now. So, I really would like to see things changed a little bit and more in line with what I'm expecting. And so.
Yeah. And as an agency, right, the thing that you always have to keep in mind is that they're paying you, the clients are paying you to make their life easier and to get results. Those two things, get your results and make their life easier. And on your side, you should be making yourself indispensable. And whether that's just being helpful, being nice, going above and beyond, and getting results, you've got to make yourself indispensable. And if you're not doing that, or if you're just kind of going through the motions, you're wasting your clients' money, not giving them what they're paying for.
So Jacob, what in your experience would you find most challenging when you're in on the agency side, and if you're dealing with a client who does have an in-house SEO, and are they trying to run you over with this is their strategy and this is their domain, and like, how do you deal with that?
Well, there have been there have been a couple of situations, and sometimes it can become a pissing match, which I like to avoid. And sometimes it's nice in that they see you as a partner and an extra set of hands. And when there's an equal amount of respect, I think that's when things tend to go best. And when they're kind of viewing you as an extension of their team, that's when things go best. When it is a situation where you're stepping on each other's toes in terms of when there isn't clarity on swim lanes, or when there are disagreements on best practices, or if you're doing a thing at one quality and you know that they're doing a thing at a lesser quality, or if the business is up at stake, that's when things start to get a little bit more nasty and more kind of difficult to wrangle and deal with. And I think I've seen almost all of those situations, and even now I'm in a situation where I wouldn't say some of the nastiness is going on, but where there is kind of that stepping over each other's toes a little bit. And I think the important thing is when that type of stuff is unavoidable because of the way that the client may have set you up with respective vendors. You can't go and fire the client's vendor, right? So what you're left with is being professional. More importantly, being nice. Doesn't cost anything to be nice. And not burning bridges, but everybody just kind of maintaining an air of professionality and doing the best job that you possibly can on behalf of the client. And sometimes that approach goes well, and sometimes not.
Right.
Not so well. So, but that's my approach. Is I always try to be professional and do what's best for the client in the long run.
Yeah, well, that definitely wins out for sure. Being nice, to your point, it doesn't cost anything. No,
it doesn't. I tell my kids that all the time. It's doesn't cost, especially the people making your food. Always be nice to the people making your food. And tell them that if you're going to be nice to everybody, but especially those people. So we haven't really talked about strategy rework. What's going on there?
So strategy rework has come about because of a lot of my experiences. It is, I have a soft spot for in-house SEOs. I've done it a few times, and I've again been on the agency side having to work with other in-house SEOs. And I just think that there's just not enough support, mentorship. There's not enough. You basically walk in the door. First of all, even if you start before day one, they're dealing with an interview. So you're on the interview, people interview you have no idea, most of them at all, what to even interview you about. Just, they don't even know the kinds of questions to ask or what to expect of you. Then you get the job, you walk in the door, and now you're told, okay, many times there's not necessarily even KPIs laid out or objectives or an understanding as to where you need to start from. So where do they learn leadership and management? How do you understand that you've got a budget that you have to deal with? You have to get buy-in because now you're in charge of this budget because you need to acquire tools to be able to get your job done. There's these other teams, business units, could be a multidisciplinary type of a complex, organization where you're dealing with different teams across different, maybe other offices in the country or internationally. And so it's like, there doesn't seem to be any resource unless you go to a conference. There's not really a whole lot of resources to help in-house SEOs navigate these challenging waters. What reports do I share? How do I even create a report? I've been talking to a ton of SEOs over the last, all of my career, of course, but very recently, just in thinking through what strategy rework needs to do and really what it's positioned for is geared to helping the in-house SEO, just educating them on everything from how do I conduct a technical audit? When I speak to my CMO, what kind of report should I be sharing with them? And just as I've been able to do is advance my career. And most recently, spoke with an in-house SEO who he wants to be a director, and he's, working with him to help him in his career to understand the difference between senior manager and director. And you want to be the director of SEO, and what are the sort of the skills and the attributes and what you need to acquire to help you get that promotion. So it's as I said, it's provides mentorship, career building, education. I'm actually in the process of developing a course for technical side of SEO in-house, and just, understanding all the nuances and setting people up, setting the developers up with a workshop, and how do you speak to not only your team, but your boss or your CMO who doesn't understand when you're, or care about the weeds and the technicalities of what's involved in a 301 redirect, or talking about JSON, or, AMP, just understanding what they need to know and what you and your developers need to know. So that's I'm still working on that. That's in the works, but that's going to be coming out soon. I'm also working with Conductor, Conductor Searchlight.
Mm-hmm.
I've been friends with them for at least 10 years now, and I've tested their platform against Cavario's and Rio's SEO, Search Metrics, and Accenture allowed me to basically get 3 or 4 of these different platforms together and just do these tests, user tests, one against the other features, and to determine if there was one platform we could recommend to our clients, even though we were supposed to be platform agnostic. I would preface it with, we're platform agnostic. However, I highly recommend Conductor Searchlight for these reasons. And, I would get others, to run the same tests with me so that they could even see exactly what I was seeing as well. And so I've been working with them, and they have an academy. And so I'm going to be helping contribute to their academy. So most of their clients typically are in-house. They do obviously work with some agencies, but they do have a huge in-house client base as well. So, my goal is just to really help as many in-house SEOs as I can, and so I'm looking to get strategy rework to kind of help with that effort.
That is a really interesting premise for kind of a company or a business offering, and it sounds like it is going to be incredibly helpful. And I speak from experience. I've been on both sides of the fence. I have found that for me, being on the agency side, and especially having other people there that understand what I do, other SEOs, has been for me something that I've found comforting and more necessary. Whereas the few times that I've been in house, there has been that feeling of being the only SEO and being the only one that knows what I know and knows the importance of what I know, and having to teach up, right, to people that make way more money than you, have way more power than you, and don't always care about SEO. So having to teach up, having to teach sideways if you're building a team, having to teach down, and you're not always having the resources or the buy-in or the understanding of everything internally the same way that you do when you're with a group of 10 or 20 or however many SEOs. When you're at an agency, right, you all kind of get it, and you can all share those same kind of trials and tribulations. But when you're in-house and you're the only SEO, you don't have anybody to share it with. And for me, that's been a big problem in my career, and the reason why I've leaned more towards agencies. So I think that will be I think something that I'm hoping for you. It's really, really successful, and it sounds like it's filling a big market need.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it's very lonely in house, and just as you're saying, back in the agency, you have all your SEO buddies, and everybody's just and then hey, let's all get together for happy hour on Friday, and it is a different it's definitely a different environment and it's a different culture than you're sort of like siloed out by yourself and everybody, in-house is looking at you like you better get this done. Otherwise, we're going to cut your budget even more next year,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So as I said, I'm really looking forward to sharing my experiences and you leveraging my experiences to help them and as many as I can. So, yeah.
So tell me about some of your biggest successes.
Well, certainly that telecom one was an absolute success for sure. Other ones I've had, one of them was interesting. It was a large bank, actually up in Canada, and similar situation. No, I'm sorry, wrong reference. This other was a major shoe retailer, and they had the biggest. They went from SharePoint as their CMS to Sitecore. So they replatform, and now they got all their products in there. And somebody within Accenture had given me a call and said, Janet, would you mind jumping on a call? These guys are like going crazy because they're getting notifications from Google that there's this issue. And so it's like, okay, sure. And just asked a few questions to understand. So there was this replatform. Yes. Okay. What's actually what are these messages that you're getting? So they would basically sharing everything with me. Essentially, they had no idea. They couldn't figure it out. None of their developers, of course, had any idea what was going on. Everything was set up in Sitecore correctly as far as they were concerned. This was a 6-week project, and it was a very expensive project for this one client. I was the only one on the team, and I was flown out there, and it was like, okay, we've got to fix this problem. So essentially what it was is it's optimization of the CMS. So they had every single product. So it was a women's shoe, white, size 9, size, like every single, everything was, open and indexable. And so it was just a matter of, okay, this is what we need to do to clean this up. And it's going to take some time because there's, over 1 million products or something insane. So it was just a matter of working with the development team. And again, it was just educational. This is what the current state is. This is what's going on. This is what Google is expecting to see. So this is what we need to do. Step 1. And I literally was like, step 1, step 2, step 3. This is how we need to correct this and get Sitecore optimized so that Google can then look at your one main product category page and not have to go crazy looking at these billions of other different types of products. So that was probably the shortest project, but it was a lot of fun because it was also, you're getting these different things, these very advanced sort of challenging technical things thrown at you. And it's like, quick, figure it out. Okay. Step 1, Sitecore. Now I'm going to go through and the way that I would figure it out is, find the site. What version are you on? Okay. You're on 8.0. Great. So I'm going to get the user guide and go through, start reading things. And invariably, another SEO hot tip, somebody else has had the same issue. So you consequently are going to go not only talk to other SEOs, but Google it. Somebody actually had written a blog post article about almost the same identical thing, and then what he did to resolve it. And it was like, good, it matched up exactly with my recommendation that I was thinking of. Awesome. And so that was another one. It was pretty exciting, pretty fun.
That's an interesting. There's 2 interesting things there. One, I'm gathering that it sounds like there were a lot of facets probably being indexed and duplicate versions of pages indexed that should not have been indexed. So if you're running an e-commerce site, watch your facets. Not all of them need to be indexed.
Exactly.
But the second part of that is just Google it. And I've talked to people that I've mentored over the years, and they've shared with me how when they were, less experienced and younger coming into an organization, how intimidating it could be to run up against people that are more experienced, because there's this thought, real or not, that they seem to know everything. Mm-hmm. And one of, I think, the really light bulb moments for some of the people that I've worked with is one, being candid, and two, letting them know it's okay not to know everything. It's okay. And you're never going to know everything, especially in this industry. And when I don't know something, honestly, I Google it.
Right.
And that was like, honestly, they kind of were like, wait, what? It's okay to do that? It's okay to do that? Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah,
absolutely.
If it's true, somebody has probably run into that exact situation before. And what's great about our industry is people like to write about it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yep.
So tell me about one of your failures or regrets.
Let's see. A good regret, or not a good regret, but a regret, probably maybe not going into as many different other. One of the things that I would be advised as I was building my career, there was this whole, you should, because people forever will never get SEO. They don't understand the people that are very passionate about it, and they don't get that either. So they look at you like, oh, you're advancing your career. You should really diversify and do other things, like other digital marketing projects. Just focus in on personalization, or, this a conversion rate optimization, and let's develop a campaign out. That's where you should really do. And, I think I probably could have maybe put forth more effort, maybe. So I don't know if it's necessarily a regret, but it was just, I would jump over there, do some of those projects, but I would always just miss like 100% doing just SEO,
Mm-hmm.
And I would just want to just focus my attention on just the nuts and bolts of running through an SEO program and taking the time to really kind of, look how much there is to absorb and learn. And you could literally not leave your desk for days in just the amount of information within SEO there is. And so, yes, there's other digital marketing activities out there. Of course, there is a thing called paid search, and there's those other disciplines that do work and should be working in coordination with your SEO program. But probably maybe if I had a regret, it would be that I didn't maybe spend more time over the course of my career in other places, because I was just really wanting to be so specialized in SEO.
Yeah, and I think it takes a special kind of person to just want to be in SEO and to be kind of, and I'm one of those people that I've found that when I've branched out into other things, I like them, but I don't like them as much as I like digging into SEO. And I've long ago given up the notion that I am ever going to know everything that there is to know in SEO, because as soon as I'm riding high and I think I've got it, I know everything, I'm going to be faced with another challenge. It's almost daily that I'm faced with another challenge or another need to reaffirm something that I've already done in my career, and the idea that, hey, let's get back up on this horse one more time and see if I've still got it. So there's a never-ending list of challenges, and that for me, that's been a regret, like not branching out a little bit more. But I think that for people like me, I've come to the realization that I'm not necessarily as happy when I do that. Whereas on the flip side, there are people that wouldn't be happy to only specialize, and people that have aspirations to be more broad in general and think of things holistically. And it kind of is what it is. It's a person-to-person sort of thing and sort of feeling. And if somebody wants to be that way, it's kind of hard to train them out of that. And if someone wants to be very specialized and focus on SEO, it's kind of hard to train that out of me. I would say it's always going to be kind of my number one passion, I think, no matter what I do the rest of my career.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So who has been your biggest mentor in the industry?
Well, I've had a few, but I would say there's been a couple. Vanessa Fox, who I think has always been awesome, and especially as a female in a predominantly male-oriented SEO industry, when you can find these other women who are also into SEO and particularly in the technical weeds, it's fun to just. I've followed her for years, and she's still doing some really pretty cool stuff. And another one, which and I think having a mentor is absolutely for anybody starting out must absolutely have an SEO mentor for sure. But when I started out in Digital Grit was my director, Sri Nagabandi, and he was a great mentor for me and helped me, you got to just get a domain, build a site from scratch, just try and break it, do all these different, it was just like, all right, cool. So I did. And I was like, this is a lot of fun. And so so he was more of a personal mentor because I did work with him day to day. And so it was, he was the one who told me, you got to stop thinking only tactically. You've got to be strategic. And this is what's going to help you in your careers. You got to be focused on strategy. And so, yes, that's absolutely right. Strategy is absolutely important. So those two for sure. But of course, you've got others, the sort of stars of the SEO industry, Danny Sullivan and Rand Fishkin and some of the others that you see speaking at these conferences, and just the amount of knowledge these people have. To me, it's just always been amazing. It's just incredible. It's like, how do you even have time to just like absorb and retain all of that on a day-to-day basis? So, it's just a lot of really cool people that I've been able to look up to over the course of my career.
Yeah, I always have said that and I was lucky enough to corral Rand for the first episode, in part because I was able to corral him at my last job because he happened to be launching a new business, and it was just good timing to interview him. But I always say it's because of people like him and other people in the industry that people like me have a job and will continue to have a job.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm forever grateful for the people like him that 10 or 15 or 20 years ago were at the forefront while I was still in college or working other jobs, not in the space, and didn't know that I was eventually going to get in the space while they were kind of cutting the path for people like me, and I'm proud to be cutting the path for people that follow after, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we all owe it to pay
Absolutely.
It forward because of people like that. So I hope that somebody someday will say it's because of people like you that I have a job today. Mm-hmm. That's my goal. So let's get into tactics. What is your favorite tactic that you're doing right now that's working?
My favorite tactic, actually, I was just recently working with a client who has an e-commerce site. And so my favorite tactic is just the tried and true technical audit. I think technical SEO, you've got the two pillars, technical and content. And then depending on who you are, whether you're a local business and you've got, local search, and then, or if you're international and you've got the international component, but it's technical and content. And those are the two things that are drive most everything. And the reason I really appreciate always starting every project out with a full and thorough technical audit is to really kind of dissect and understand exactly what's going on from the CMS, from the server side, What's the page speed like? And just the overall performance of the site from a technical perspective, and just finding out if there's anything there, whether it's 301 redirects or just from a mobile standpoint, anything you can correct or tweak and improve. It just sets you up on the right trajectory to get to, now we can deal with the site side stuff, and let's focus on a proper content strategy and working through that. So I remember a number of years back, a colleague of mine always wanted to start immediately with link building. And I'm like, why would you start with link building? Like, are you kidding me? Well, I got to get links. I'm like, well, okay. But if you think, again, step one, we got to run a technical audit, resolve all of those initially, understand what's going on, and then just work through. The links will be later on. And especially if you're talking about major, well-known brands, like, this isn't something I'm going to be focusing heavily on. Yes. It's just crazy. So no, I really, one of my favorite tactical things is running a good technical audit and just getting the output, and even just pulling it into Excel and then developing this workbook, and then sharing with the client and showing here is a prioritization based on biggest impact of search, lowest level of effort. This is what we're going to do first, next, etc. And this is how we're going to set you up. And mostly, if all goes well, you should expect to see an increase. And generally speaking, that has always seemed to work and still works. It's not that kind of thing hasn't changed too much. There have been certain other things that have changed, but I think the good old technical audit is definitely a good thing to have.
When you were on the agency side, did you ever find that you were bucketed as a certain type of SEO, right? Some people get bucketed as, this is a technical SEO or this is a content person. And sometimes when the people who are deciding what clients people work on or what type of work people get involved in are making those decisions, they tend to lean on kind of those areas of specialty. And I know for me, I was bucketed as a technical SEO, and over the course of time, it just got old. I was like, I want to do other things. Stop giving me this technical work. And not that I don't like it. I love technical, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth. But I'm way into content strategy right now. I'm really interested in that. And it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. So, like, have you ever been bucketed as a certain type of SEO? And if so, how did you break out of that to show the people assigning the work that you could do other things? So
in my very early days of that first agency that I started at, I was known as, very heavy technical, the technical one. We had another, there was one other guy that was very technical, and in some cases I always thought that he was way more advanced than I was, but he came from the developer, background. So he knew a little bit more from a code perspective as to, kind of how to address certain things. So I initially started out as one of the technical people, the technical ones. Then just by, just the natural state of things, when I moved in-house, I was the only one. So now I had to get better at everything. Mm-hmm. And so became more of a general practitioner instead of specialized only in technical aspects of SEO. With Accenture, again, I was only one of a very small handful of SEOs. And so I just took that ability to know technical and site side and the content strategy of things and continue to enhance and develop that, because certain projects lent themselves more to understanding user intent and developing personas. We would have a personalization project ongoing in conjunction with that SEO project. So it was just a natural, okay, now we're not focused on the technical stuff. We got to focus all more in on the content side of things. But I I really love all of it. It's not that I wouldn't want to be bucketed into one thing, but yes, initially starting out, it was definitely technical for sure.
So you mentioned Conductor a little bit earlier. What are some of your other favorite tools of the trade?
Screaming Frog for sure. And they just had an update, which I know you mentioned in Twitter.
It was amazing.
Is that awesome?
It was. So Screaming Frog, if you don't know or not using Screaming Frog, is one of the first technical tools to roll in the ability to bulk analyze structured data. And it's really, really funny because I was just on the phone renewing our deep crawl contract literally last week, and they asked, do you have any feedback? And I said, well, it would be nice if you had structured data in your tool, because it is really a pain in the butt to try to audit structured data site-wide anywhere. It's
right.
A exercise. And thank you, Screaming Frog, for adding that. We've all been waiting for it, and we were all excited.
That's their new version 11. I saw they tweet that out this week too, so that was very cool. Other tools I like, have you heard of New Relic?
I have not.
All right. New Relic is awesome for page speed. I had to do, actually with this last university contract, we needed to look at page speed and not the Google Page Insights. We wanted to know exactly, again, from the technical aspects of things, where it was most impactful from an SEO standpoint, from the initial first bite and looking at that. Well, New Relic, and it's relatively inexpensive too, the contract. And we kind of split it with the development team because they have other things that the development team liked from a web performance perspective. But really awesome. You can see literally in real time like what's actually happening. So that's a great one for page speed. So that and of course, Ahrefs, is it that SEMrush. Those two are definitely my favorite. I'll jump back and forth between those as well. And of course, Google Search Console. How could you?
Yeah.
You got to give Google Search Console its due.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Another one, Data Studio. That is awesome. Data Studio, just creating reports. And I found over the last 6 months, developing reports out of Data Studio for your CMO. And this particular CMO wanted to see, he had a special appreciation for SEO. Unlike most CMOs I've ever met, this guy actually knew what search engine land was and read it. So he wanted to see the details of a page speed report, which, as I said, I've never met a CMO that would even care to see this. But we would develop out these Data Studio reports and be able to extract exactly the kind of information he was looking for. And it was just so easy. And so, Data Studio is another very cool tool.
Yeah, that is definitely something that we're getting into in terms of automating a lot of our reporting. Very important, because reporting, if you're not automating those elements of it, can take a long time, and that's less time that you have to actually do the strategy work.
Yes, absolutely.
Equally important, right? You have to report on results, but it can take a long time. As we're closing, if somebody is getting into SEO this year, right at this moment, what would you tell them?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think find an SEO mentor and somebody who's it doesn't matter whether they're in-house or in the agency, but obviously somebody with some level of experience to help kind of hold your hand, walk you through what you need to know, what you should understand. And actually what I would say is start out in an agency. I think learning in an agency environment is absolutely the best experience. I see so many new SEOs just decide, I've read a few blog posts, I've built my own site, I know SEO, I'm going to go out and get an SEO client. And you could do it that way, but it's learning on somebody else's dime, which is difficult because now if you're trying to pay your bills with that, you might not be too successful. So I think the best education is going into an agency environment and just learning as much as you can. And go check out what the paid search team is doing, because what they're doing definitely has impacts in what you're working on as well.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Agency for me has been when I feel like I've developed the most. And part of that, and people don't talk about it, there is a certain element of camaraderie, right? And you can go talk to the other SEO folks. But honestly, being in an agency, like, it's competitive. It's competitive, and people are all, really concerned about their careers. So, like, if you're not progressing, you're not going to get that promotion that you want. And it's fast paced, and you get exposure to a lot of clients, a lot of different types of things. And in my experience, not that in-house SEOs are bad by any stretch of the imagination, but the best SEOs that I've ever worked with have all been at agencies. And I think that there's a reason for that. So I absolutely agree with that advice.
Yeah, without a doubt. Absolutely. Go agencies.
Right. Cool. Well, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me at strategyrework.com, or I'm on Twitter, of course, at Janet Bartoli. So either of those two places, you can see what I'm up to over at Strategy Rework. As I said, I'm building out something really special for in-house SEOs, and I'll be working with Conductor in their academy.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're an in-house SEO, absolutely go and look up Janet and connect with her. And Janet, I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for coming on the show, being willing to stay up late to talk shop, and being so candid in providing such great insights that I hope my audience can really appreciate.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jacob. It's my pleasure. It was really fun to be here, and good luck with the podcast. I've really enjoyed all your episodes. It's really great.
Thank you so much for listening to the Page 2 podcast. If you like this podcast, you can listen and rate it on a number of platforms, including Anchor.fm, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, Applecast, Stitcher, Breaker, Castbox, and more. If you wish to support the growth of this podcast, please visit my website at jacobstoops.com/page2podcast or Anchor.fm/page2podcast to make a donation. Would be greatly appreciated. If you're an SEO who would like to be interviewed, I'd love to have you. Simply send me an email at jake.stoops@gmail.com and we'll absolutely set something up. Until next time, happy optimizing.